So we'll start, Colin. Okay, Colin, we most of us know Colin. So Colin Fraser is from Woodstock, New York. He is judging since the early 1980s, originally in the UK and later in the US. A judge at many national exhibitions outside of the US and an FIP qualified judge. In the early 2000s, established the series of competitions for digital philatelic studies in conjunction with Richard Malsell and the American Stamp Dealers Association, active with many groups within organized philately since the late 1970s, including the British Philatelic Federation, the Rhodesian Study Circle, and the Waterloo Study Circle, and the Philatelic Writers Society. Interests include British India, India used abroad, British Africa, and many other areas, and formerly Christie's president. So, over to you, Colin.
Okay, thank you, Pradesad.
Thank you.
First of all, I hope everybody can hear me. I hope the volume is loud enough for all of you. So this afternoon for you, early this morning for me, I'm going to talk a little bit about exhibiting and judging of first day covers. Now, some of you, or perhaps a few of you, are familiar with the idea of collecting first day covers. But for most people, it's a very, very new area, still very experimental and kind of on the cutting edge of changes in the exhibiting world. Now, from a judging perspective, it's fair to say, and this is not a criticism, it's just a simple fact of life, most qualified judges, whether national or international, are really not familiar either with collecting or exhibiting first day covers. They simply have no experience. They've never been exposed to judging first day covers. They've never had to judge first day covers. Now, within the philatelic world, there are a lot of misconceptions about the idea of first day covers. Some would say some are even a little prejudiced. Now, the general perception is that most first day covers are all very modern. It's modern productions of the post office. And really, what interest or what philatelic scope could such a collecting area offer? Well, not all first day covers are modern. And actually, creating a good first day cover exhibit, like any exhibit, is not an easy thing to do. Now, in terms of the presentation which I'm going to give this afternoon, I'm going to start with a very brief history about first day covers, a section talking about collecting and exhibiting first day covers, and then talking about the rules and regulations for first day cover exhibits, and trying to close out talking a little bit about judging first day cover exhibits, and then at the end, hopefully we'll have time for a few questions and a little bit of discussion. So, what is a first day cover? Well, really, a first day cover is simply a part of the field of earliest documented use. Now, those of you who are familiar with classic India or classic stamps of almost any country, you frequently will see in an exhibit a discussion of this is the earliest documented use. That is to say, the earliest use of the stamp or the piece of postal stationery. Now, amongst the early material, in most cases, there was no specific date of issue. There was no officially designated issue. And so really identifying the earliest documented use is done through the study of the actual material. And that in itself can take a tremendous amount of research and study and the application of knowledge by the collector or the exhibitor. And really, first day covers are essentially a subgroup within the earliest documented use. And that is an important point to get across in the field of first day cover collecting. Now, obviously, with the penny black, we had an officially designated first day of use, which was the 6th of May. However, and again making the point that there are earliest documented uses, we have for the penny black the earliest documented uses on the 1st and the 2nd of May of 1840. The official first day of use was, of course, the 6th of May. And this is one of the early covers of the 6th of May. This one was actually self-addressed and sent by an early collector, Robert Cole, who was a solicitor in London. And this is a first day cover. It's also an official use on the first day of postal service. Now, the Mulready envelopes, the postal stationery, were also brought out at the same time as the penny black. We also get earliest documented uses. There's one on the left of the 2nd of May, and on the right is the official first day of use of the 6th of May. So the first important thing to understand is that you can have early first day covers with either an official day of issue, like the penny black on the 6th of May, or earliest documented uses. And this expands greatly the scope of first day cover collecting. So all those early stamp issues and all the early postal stationery, for which there may or may not be an officially designated date of issue, you can include within the field of first day cover collecting all these earliest documented uses. So your earliest documented uses of the Indian 1854 issue could be included. Your earliest documented uses of the De La Rue issues of Queen Victoria or Edward VII could also be included within the scope of first day cover collecting. Now, an important point to emphasize is that first day cover collecting does not just comprise postage stamps affixed to envelopes. It could also include postal stationery. I mentioned the Mulready envelopes. Here's an example of the Great Britain Halfpenny postcard, first day of UPU, first day of use, on October 1st of 1870. Again, earliest documented use and showing the scope of first day cover collecting well back into material in the 19th century. Now, in terms of stamps used on cover, again, almost all of the early first day covers are unillustrated. Oswald Marsh was a British stamp dealer who may or may not be familiar to many of you. He was very, very active from the 1880s through to his death in 1851. And this is an example of a self-addressed first day cover made in southeast London in 1924. It's first day use of the Great Britain George V ninepenny olive green. Again, emphasizing that first day covers can include early material. Now, when were illustrated first day covers? That is to say, envelopes with a first day use of the stamp with some form of printed cachet or some form of illustration added to the envelope. Well, in the case of Great Britain, the earliest illustrated first day covers actually correspond with Coronation Day in June 1911. And this is an example of the first day of the use of the George V halfpenny on June 22nd, 1911. And you can see the cachet, the printed illustration on the left of the envelope, commemorating that Coronation Day of June 22nd. So here we are in 1911 with the introduction in Great Britain of cachet covers for a first day. Now, I'm mentioning the word cachet. You're probably all wondering, well, what's a cachet? Well, the cachet is basically the wording or illustrations added prior to mailing or added later to the envelope with the stamp and the postmark of the first day. Now, the cachet is really one of the key primary focus for a first day cover exhibit, the illustration added to the envelope. Obviously, the secondary important aspect is the postmark. Now, early first day covers, in all cases, simply have generic town cancels, the regular postmarks in everyday use in the post offices. Now, today, in more recent times, most first day covers have a special related postmark, often inscribed first day of issue. Also, today, increasingly, you have pictorial cancels related to the subject of the stamp issue. Now, in first day cover collecting, the key thing is obviously the date in the postmark. You need to have a clear, legible date. And an important distinction to draw is that a study of postmarks alone, applied on the day they were introduced, would not be a first day cover exhibit. That would be a simple postal history exhibit. The key thing, as I say, in first day cover collecting is the cachet, and the secondary focus is the postmark. Now, obviously, the cachets, like stamp production, involve certain stages in the preparation. And this is just to illustrate that in many cases there is artwork available for the production of the cachets on more recent first day covers. And this is an example of Michael Goeman artwork for the 1974 Malawi angling issue. And you can see the preliminary design showing the fishes, and then the later design stage with the addition of the lettering, and then at the top right corner, the final issue design by the Malawi Post Office for the stamp issue. And again, as with stamp collecting, so with first day cover collecting, you can in many cases acquire the artwork and the production materials for the cachet. In the United States, there is a lot of artwork available, and this is an example of the artwork by a company called Artmaster, who were one of the major US first day cover producers. And this is the printing plate for the Benjamin Franklin half-cent postage stamp that was issued some years ago. Now, again, talking a little more in detail about cachets. Cachets can obviously be applied in many, many different processes. There are different production methods: lithography, photography, thermal printing, intaglio, hand stamping, and obviously manuscript. There are even examples where the design is prepared on silk, which is then affixed to the first day cover. And this was very, very trendy, or it was very popular back in the late 1970s and the early 1980s. And this is an example of one of those silk first day covers produced by a company in the US called Colorado. There are also many examples of silk covers prepared in the UK. Another aspect to first day cover collecting, the hand-painted cachets. In the US, one of the more famous artists who did hand-painted cachets was a lady called Dorothy Knapp. She was actually a school teacher. She studied art and English at Skidmore College, and her husband started a first day cover business in the late 1930s. In parallel with her husband's business, Dorothy Knapp prepared for a small number of clients individually created hand-painted designs for first day covers. And this is just an example of one of Dorothy Knapp's illustrated covers. The ironic thing is that Dorothy Knapp was born and lived in Kingston in the state of New York, which is actually about 8 miles from where I live now in Woodstock, New York. After she retired in Kingston, she and her husband moved to the other side of the Hudson River, and she passed away in 1986 in Rhinebeck, a small town on the other side of the Hudson River. So there's a local connection for me in the artwork of Dorothy Knapp. Now, most of you, when you think of first day covers, think about the official post office first day covers. And these obviously can come in multiple designs, multiple simple lettering, monocolored, multicolored designs. And again, there is a tremendous scope in the official post office first day covers. They can come in, here's an example of a US one, a fairly simple design with a special illustrated postmark saying first day of issue for the American scientists. This was for a first day ceremony done in New York at one of the ASDA shows in New York City. And alongside is shown the enclosure which was included in that first day cover. The Crown agents, who are responsible for a lot of the production of stamps back in the early years for the British colonies, also in many cases produced official first day covers. And here are a couple of examples, one from the 1960s for the Winston Churchill Memorial issue, and the other for the definitive issue of the Federation of South Arabia, also in 1965. There are also different companies around the world who have produced first aid covers. These are examples of commercially produced first aid covers from India. A couple of examples, the MAP issue, which is a favorite of mine, and some of the other definitive issues, also with special postmarks. You also have, apart from the specific first aid cover designs with cachets for a specific stamp issue, there's also the whole field of generic cachet designs, which are simply an illustration added to the envelope, but there is no necessary direct connection between the cachet and the stamp issue. This is an example of a Stuart cover prepared in the UK for the all-over phosphor 1 shilling and sixpence Machin definitive. And the cachet on the left is a generic design which was used by Rush Stamps and a number of other companies for stamp issues where there was no official post office first aid cover. Now, one of the problems with cachets, and this increasingly is a difficulty for collectors and for judges, is the whole field of add-ons. Now, add-ons are basically printed cachets or hand-painted illustrations which are added much, much later than the postal use of the cover. Now, obviously, in the case of Dorothy Knapp, her hand painting was done almost contemporary with the issue and the use of the first aid cover. So that is a generally recognized aspect of first aid cover collecting. This example also for the Chinese memorial issue of the US, this is an add-on made by an artist in Chicago called Larry Gasson. Now, the difference between Gasson's work and Dorothy Knapp's work is Dorothy Knapp's work was done almost at the same time. Gasson's work was done 50, 60, 70 years later than the actual first aid cover. What he would do is he would take unillustrated covers and add this graphic later to the envelope. And in first aid cover collecting, it's really important to draw the distinction between cachets, which are contemporary, and cachets, which are later add-ons. Now, in terms of first aid covers, again, discussing a little bit more on the design process, which is an important part of first aid cover collecting. In many cases, we do have alternative mock-ups prepared by the printers. And this again is just an example from Malawi for the 1987 Hippo issue. And you can see Courvoisier, who prepared the stamps and were also asked to produce the first aid cover. They submitted to the Malawi Post Office various proposed designs for both the stamps and the first aid cover envelope. And you can see here illustrated two different cachets, cachet A on the left and cachet B on the left, on the right rather. The actual adopted one was the cachet A on the left. Now again, all this artwork, all this production material for the cachets is an important component to first aid cover collecting. Now, I mentioned earlier the idea that first aid covers come in all shapes and sizes. This is indeed the case. Illustrated here are a couple of different folders showing that the stamps and also the first aid postmarks. These are not traditional envelopes as we think of as first aid covers, but again, these folders form an integral part of a first aid cover collection. They also come in different sizes. You can see the rectangular cachets, first aid covers. The one on the right is actually about 12 inches by 18 inches. Again, it has all the essential components. It has a cachet, it has a first aid postmark, and it has the stamps affixed to the first aid cover. Now, again, another complication to first aid cover collecting. A lot of the first aid covers that you see are unaddressed. Many are addressed. They've gone through the mail. They have either a handwritten or a typewritten address. Now, which is the preference? Well, a lot of it is aesthetics. Um, a neatly handwritten first day cover can be as attractive as one with a typewritten or a printed address. And this just illustrates some of the differences. You can see the one on the left, which clearly went through the mail. The one on the right, well, there's an argument whether it did or did not go through the mail itself, or whether it was sent within another envelope. Now, again, within first day covers, there's a thing called handbacks. Now, what is a handback? A handback is simply a first day cover which was serviced, that is to say, stamp affixed, postmark applied, which never actually transited through the postal system. Now, again, should these be included in a collection? Should they be included in an exhibit? Well, it is an integral part of the first day cover story. And again, to a degree, it is a matter of personal preference whether you include handbacks in your collection or in your exhibit. Now, another complication to the field of first day cover collecting are first day covers associated with other events. Up to now, I've talked about there being a connection between the cachet, the printed design on the envelope, the issued stamp, and, in many cases, the postmark. Now, here is a first day cover for the Bird issue, showing clearly the postmark first day of issue. But the cachet directly relates to the American Philatelic Society stamp show in 2016 in Portland, Oregon. Again, covers such as this can and should be included in a first day cover exhibit. Obviously, you don't have the direct connection between the cachet, the postmark, and the stamp, but there is at least the aesthetic connection in the design showing the same bird both on the cachet and on the stamp, even as though the printed words on the cover are directly relate to the stamp show and not to the issue of the stamp. Now, at this point, it's important to draw a clear distinction between what are first day covers and what are simply souvenir covers. None of these three covers is actually a first day cover. They bear a certain visual similarity to first day covers, but not one of these items is actually a first day cover for the stamp. And obviously these are not relevant to a first day cover exhibit. They are simply souvenir covers and they are not first day covers. And it's really important to draw that distinction and to exclude souvenir covers that are not first day covers from either a collection or an exhibit of first day covers. Now, I've talked about the production material for the cachets on a first day cover. There is also a whole area of what in America we call paraphilatelic material for a first day cover exhibit. And this area includes any material, any post office announcements or publicity material relating to the issue of the stamp and to the first day covers. And these are just three examples, one from the Malawi Post Office, one for South Arabia, and one for the announcement of the Postal Service first day cover at Madison Square Garden for the Yoda stamp, again, associated with one of the American Stamp Dealers Association shows in New York City. Again, this type of material is relevant to an exhibit of first day covers. Korea also issues paraphilatelic material. These are the announcements and the production details for the monkey issue and other issues of Korea. The United States also has publicity materials for the first day ceremonies. The first day ceremonies are something unique to the US, where they have a launch city at which the stamp is issued for the first time. And associated with those first day ceremonies, they have a whole series of events and speeches and music. And this is the publicity material for the Hawaiian postcard, again, postal stationery, first day issue shown in the right-hand side. and the program for the event done in Hawaii for the issue of that postal stationery card. Now, let's talk a little bit more specifically about first day cover collecting or exhibiting. Now, contrary to what some people may believe, first day cover collecting is a vibrant and increasingly popular collecting field, and it offers a broad range of opportunities and options to collect. I've tried to give some sense of the scope in these earlier slides in the early part of the talk. Now, as with other fields of collecting, as a collector, you can collect in any style and approach that you want. However, and again, as with all other fields of collecting, as soon as you transition to exhibiting, you have to study the rules and the guidelines and conform to them in order to be successful and to achieve high medals. Unfortunately, with first day cover collecting and exhibiting at the moment, there is no consistent and universal set of rules and guidelines. Now, one of the other benefits to first day cover collecting is, of course, an opportunity to promote philately amongst other people and amongst the younger collectors. The potential that first day cover collecting and exhibiting offers is broad. It's an opportunity for young collectors to get into an area which is arguably less expensive and offers a lot of scope to collect. Now, at the moment, we are still in the experimental stage of introducing first day covers as an official class either for FIAP or FIP. It's very much an early stage, and we're still taking tentative steps towards first day covers as an official class at international exhibitions. However, and again, an area that is personally of great interest to me, I think first day cover exhibiting is something which lends itself very, very well to virtual exhibitions. I know in India you've had a number of virtual exhibitions. There was some years ago the Philavirtu exhibition. And I think first day covers are something that lends itself very, very well to virtual exhibiting. Now, I mentioned that at the moment we have really no consistent universal guidelines and rules for first day cover exhibiting. Part of the problem is that in each and many different countries, the aspects of first day cover production, the nature of the available material differs significantly. We'll start by taking a brief look at first day covers of the United States. In some ways, the US is a special case. The first officially recognized first day cover in the US came in 1923 with the Harding Memorial issue. This date essentially marks the start of modern first day cover collecting in the United States. First day cancels were first introduced in 1937. And the key thing about US first day covers, which I mentioned in respect to the Hawaiian postal card, is the idea of a launch city. That is to say, each US stamp issue, both from the 30s onwards and still to this day, has an official launch city where there is the first day ceremony and where the first day covers are first produced. They all bear the postmark of the launch city. The other aspect which is unique or arguably unique about the US is the tremendous number of different cachet makers. In the US, there are hundreds, over time, hundreds of different cachet makers. And many of these cachet makers worked over very, very long periods of time. Now, given the nature of the available material, and given the current US rules for exhibiting first day covers, the US system is not directly, what should we say, transferable either to FIAP or FIP exhibitions. The current US structure is kind of unique to the US situation. Now, why is it not directly translatable? Well, within US first day cover exhibiting, they are essentially a subclass of traditional exhibits with an expanded first day cover section included with a study of cachet makers. The stamp production, the production of the stamp for the first day cover, is also included. So if you look at, for example, an 8-frame exhibit of first day covers in the United States, the first 2 frames are likely to be devoted to paraphilatelic material, the associated publicity material, and proofs, essays, artwork, and related production material for the stamps themselves. So the key thing is you have an initial study of production of the stamp. And the final section of a US first day cover exhibit would include a study of the commercial uses of that stamp itself. So a significant component of the first day cover exhibit would not comprise first day cover material. You have the production material of the stamp, and you have the commercial uses of the stamp. So in a sense, these exhibits are, as I stress, really a subclass of traditional exhibiting. Now, if you look in Australia, first day cover exhibiting in Australia, they have a very comprehensive set of regulations which are similar to the regulations of the US. However, a lot of the language within those regulations is confusing. For example, just to take one quote, it says, philatelic knowledge will be judged according to the interest of the comments. Now, honestly, I don't really understand what that is supposed to mean, the interest of the comments. I'm not sure what that means. In Australia, topical exhibits of first day covers are required, as in topical collecting, to have a clearly defined plan. Within the US, in the few cases where there are topical exhibits of first day covers, there is no requirement for a clearly defined plan. The US also allow you to include special event covers. Those covers which I showed earlier, which look like first day covers, but are not first day covers. In Australia, they are specifically stated that they may be included. They do also include production material for a cachet, but you should not show the production material of the stamp. Within Australia, you are also able to include maximum cards within the first day cover exhibiting. The final aspect of first day cover exhibiting in Australia is that rarity is based on difficulty of acquisition. So those are just some of the details of first day cover exhibiting in Australia. Now, the All China Federation has also produced its own set of guidelines for exhibiting first day covers. The Chinese regulations are much narrower in scope than either the US or the Australian guidelines. The Chinese guidelines specifically allow for the inclusion of handbags. The other key aspect of the Chinese regulations are that exhibits should be composed solely of first day cover philatelic materials. So, unlike the US, production material for the stamps and commercial uses of the stamps associated with the first day covers should not be shown. You can show artwork and production materials for the cachets or the postmarks, but absolutely not for the stamps. In China, they also emphasize that there should be a focus on the study of postmarks. Now, in the case of the United States, because of the structure of a launch city, there is essentially only a single postmark that exists on each and every first day cover. It's the same postmark applied to all of the first day covers associated with the launch city. So in first day cover collecting in the US, there really is no study of the postmarks because they're all the same. In the US, you can study the cachets because there's tremendous scope in the cachets, but you have a single solitary postmark. And so really, you cannot equate this Chinese emphasis of focus on the study of the postmarks with the US because there is nothing to study. Now, The other thing which China does, which is a really, really good idea, is they do actually state explicitly in their guidelines that for stamps without a clear date of issue, the earliest documented uses can be exhibited. So again, this draws into the structure of first day cover exhibiting the idea of the earliest documented uses. Now, just taking those three examples, where does this take us? Well, it takes us to the point that there really is a need for a consistent set of guidelines for first day cover exhibiting. I've talked a little bit about some of the details between Australia, China, and the US. But at the end of the day, there is really an urgent need to standardize these guidelines, especially as we look towards establishing first day covers as a class either at FIAP or FIP exhibitions. Now, one of the things that we ought to do, or we need to do, is to encourage flexibility and creativity by the exhibitors. Given the novelty of first day cover exhibiting, it is an opportunity for us to give back some of the flexibility and creativity to exhibitors. And what I would say is we don't want to over-regulate the field of first day cover exhibiting. We need guidelines, we do need some rules, but we do equally want to encourage innovation, flexibility, and creativity by the exhibitors. Now, obviously, one of the key things is that first day covers do also need to comply with the size of exhibits that apply at different exhibitions, whether it's single frame, 5 or 8 frames, as with the other classes, and of course for a number of exhibitions which are now looking at the introduction of 2 and 3 frame exhibits. So there are certain aspects of first day cover exhibiting that must comply with the requirements of other classes, but we also should look at some specific guidelines and some specific rules that are unique to the areas of first day cover exhibiting. Now, criteria for evaluating first day cover exhibits. This is where we come to really the judging aspect. In terms of how you organize and how you structure your first day cover exhibits, taking the different rules from the US, from China, and Australia, there are really different ways that a first day cover exhibit can be structured. It could be either for a single stamp or stamp issue. It could focus on a series of stamp issues by time period or theme. It could be organized by a specific country or a group of related countries. It could be a study of cachet design, cachets that have a common theme, or a study of a cachet maker, the production materials associated with a given cachet maker over a period of time. It could be by type of postal item. We talked about envelopes, we talked about booklets, we talked about postal stationery. And of course also there's first day covers as postal history, where they went through the mail and they might show different auxiliary markings. They might be redirected, they might be returned to sender. So there are all these different ways in which a first day cover exhibit could be organized. Treatment. As with the other classes, treatment is going to partly be based on the available material. I've emphasized, and I frequently repeat myself, and I'm going to repeat myself again, the difference of available first day cover material between different countries is going to influence how first day cover exhibits originate from those different countries. The type of first day cover exhibit that you can produce based on the available US material is going to be very different from one associated with a material from India or from Great Britain or from China. So the treatment that's appropriate is partly going to be based on the available material for specific countries, periods, or topics. Now, as with the other exhibiting classes, you need a clear title, a well-designed title page with a purpose statement and a plan. The key thing in any first day cover exhibit that you may be judging is that a significant part of the exhibit should be devoted 2 first day covers. Now, again, as was apparent from the different US, Australia, and Chinese rules, obviously what might also be included is going to vary. But at the end of the day, the core of the exhibit should be devoted to first day covers. Key focus should be on the cachets. That should be a priority. Now, in terms of how you structure the cachets, obviously there are different ways. I've alluded to the cachet maker, the design type of the cachet. John Hotchner, for example, has a very interesting first day cover exhibit for the 1947 US stamp exhibition and the centenary of the US first issue of federal stamps. And his cachet first day covers are organized by the pictorial design of the cachet. They show Washington and Franklin. They show aspects of New York City where the exhibition was held. It's structured by the cachet design. Generally speaking, in the US, most cachet structures are based around the cachet makers. In other cases, they're structured around the production process, the production method of the cachet, which I talked a little bit about earlier. The secondary focus is obviously on the postmarks. In the US, there's little scope for the postmarks. In other countries, there is greater scope. Topical and thematic treatments should be judged as such. And again, in terms of the exhibiting and the treatment, in developing the treatment, there needs to be an effective use of headings. Now, knowledge, personal study, and research for first day cover exhibits. Obviously, a lot of this directly compares with the other exhibiting classes. The selection of the material, brief and accurate descriptions, research sources listed, identifying new discoveries. These are all things that you would do with other exhibiting classes. Now again, correctly identifying and illustrating the production process of the cachets, analyzing the postmarks, including design drafts, correctly identifying non-contemporary add-ons. I mentioned the Larry Gasson add-ons later that were later added to the first day covers. These need to be correctly identified. Now again, showing knowledge and personal study, finding foreign destinations for first day covers, unusual postal markings, auxiliary markings, unofficial cancels applied to the covers. This is scope and depth to the exhibit. In other areas of collecting, similar approaches would be adopted. In this regard, first day cover exhibiting is not significantly different to some of the other exhibit classes. Now, condition is one of the areas where there's some degree of contention. Obviously, many first day covers are really in very, very good condition. The expectation is that they will, especially for the more recent material, and when I say recent material, I'm really talking from really the 1940s onwards. Most first day covers are going to be in very, very good condition. Obviously, ones that did go through the mail may show a little bit of minor wear, but generally speaking, the covers are going to be in exceptionally good condition. But what are the key things you should be looking for? The stamps should be tied to the cover. The stamps should clearly belong to the cover. They should be tied by the postmark. The stamps themselves should be fault-free and not have defects. Obviously, covers should not be toned or stained wherever possible. In some cases, there may be no choice. That may simply be the way the material is available. But ideally, they should not be toned or stained. Many early Indian first day covers, even some of the more recent ones, are often stained, especially around the perforations on the stamps. Those in an exhibit should be avoided. And in the judging process, points should be deducted if the condition of the first day covers is not as high as it potentially could be. Rarity. Now, rarity again is a difficult area with first day covers. Partly it is a question of how difficult are the covers to acquire. Ideally, where possible, one should quantify the number of first day covers produced. In the case of many of the Crown Agents first day covers, for some of the smaller British colonies, in the Crown Agents Gazettes, it does actually say how many first day covers were produced. In other cases, the information is simply not available. But wherever possible, you should cite census sources. If you are showing earliest documented uses, you should cite the information on which the information is based. If you're studying a single stamp with many different cachets, you cannot assume that all covers are equally readily available. As a judge, you have to have knowledge about which are the rarer cachets for the stamp issue, the first day cover that you're looking at. Now, one of the things that you have to avoid is equating the rarity of a first day cover with the value of the stamps on the cover. This was an aspect which is a little bit difficult based on the Chinese regulations. There is a suggestion that the rarity of a first day cover does reflect the value of the stamps on the cover. This is unique to the Chinese regulations, but it should not be the basis of judging rarity. There may be an association between the two, but it should not equate to the value of the stamps, the rarity. Presentation, this really doesn't require a lot of comment. Presentation is very similar to all the other exhibiting classes. There's a lot of personal preference. Some things work, some things don't. Highlighting key items, mounting materials, choice of page color, and so on. All of these things are really the same as other exhibiting classes. You want to avoid, obviously, repetitive appearance. As a judge, if you see an exhibit that's based on repetitive appearance, you are going to downgrade it. You need to look at the balance within and between the frames. Again, there's nothing special or unique about first day cover exhibits under presentation. It really does follow what you would do for the other exhibiting classes. Importance. Now, importance in almost every exhibiting class is somewhat subjective. There has been a recent reinterpretation, and now at many exhibitions, importance is split into 5 and 5. Importance within the overall structure of philately, and importance within the subject of the exhibit, allocating 5 points for each of the two. How do you define importance for a first day cover exhibit? Well, it's a little difficult. In China, the guidelines define it as the philatelic value of the exhibit. Again, what is implied by philatelic value? Open to interpretation, subjective. Under the US guidelines, importance is generally related to the thoroughness of the treatment. Essentially, it's a repetition of treatment. My argument, and this is a personal opinion, and I stress it's a personal opinion, given the fact that in many ways importance for a first day cover is duplicative. In the US, it duplicates treatment. In China, it essentially duplicates rarity, perhaps. I would argue that there's a good argument for eliminating importance in terms of first day cover exhibiting. And in my opinion, and again, I stress this is not a generally accepted point of view, it's open for discussion. I would argue that it would be better to reallocate the importance points between treatment and rarity. So, in the current discussions which are taking place by the FIP for the introduction of a first day cover class, there is a committee which is currently studying and preparing some draft IRECs. And I've put forward the proposal that the point scores at the FIP level for first day cover exhibiting should be along these lines, reallocating the importance points, as I say, between treatment and rarity. Again, I would encourage all of you as judges to think about how logical that is. Does it make sense? And here's an idea for you all to contemplate. Should we be considering eliminating importance from the judging of all exhibit classes? Controversial point of view, but one that I would encourage you all to think about. Is importance really a key judging criteria that we should be considering? Or should we be looking at reallocating those points as I'm proposing for the first day covers? Now, there was at the recent Shanghai International Exhibition an experimental first day cover class, and this was actually quite insightful. We had first day cover exhibits under different approaches. We had topical exhibits, we had synoptic exhibits, we had detailed studies of a single stamp or stamp set, and we also had first day covers as postal history. The New Zealand earliest known uses was one of those aspects of postal history. The ironic thing is that although the Chinese regulations, which were used at that show, said that earliest documented uses could be shown in the first day cover class, the New Zealand exhibit of earliest known uses was actually transferred out of the first day cover class and into the postal history class. So even at this experimental exhibition, the judges who were judging the exhibits were having a problem applying the regulations that were for the show. So this tells us just we're in a very formative early stage in the judging of first day cover exhibits. The one area which was not represented in the Shanghai exhibition was any study of a specific cachet maker. We had the exhibits in those four classes or four groups, but no study of a specific cachet maker. Now, drawing to a close, what about the future of first day cover exhibits at exhibitions? As I've mentioned, we shouldn't have it over-regulated. We want to encourage flexibility, originality, and innovation. And as judges, you should give credit for flexibility, originality, and innovation. A key thing, and again, from a judging perspective, this is something that needs a fair degree of detailed thought. How should a first day cover exhibit be clearly differentiated from traditional or postal history exhibits? I mentioned that most US first day cover exhibits are essentially a variant of a traditional class exhibit. So this is an area that judges need to give some real serious thought to. How are first day cover exhibits different? How should they be different? Again, a really important point is we need to find a standard and consistent set of rules and guidelines. And obviously each country can do or organize these how it wants to. But from an exhibiting point of view, as you move from a national exhibition potentially to an international exhibition, it's really important that there should be a logical transition between the national rules and the international rules. And so really the different countries do need to work together and coordinate how the rules and guidelines should be drawn up for first day cover exhibiting. I mentioned key focus on cachets. We need to establish, and this is again a difficult area from the exhibiting perspective, where a country does not have opportunities for exhibiting first day covers at the national level. How does a collector who might have a really good first day cover exhibit transition to showing at the international level if he has no opportunity to exhibit nationally? Again, an area that needs to be explored between the judges and the show organizers and the different national organizations. And again, the key thing here, and I emphasize this to you all as judges, there's a need for training of judges both nationally and internationally. I started at the outset by emphasizing that most judges, whether they're national judges or international judges, have virtually no experience of judging first day cover exhibits. And so therefore there is a real need to train judges and to give them experience of judging first day cover exhibits in order that they can do the best possible service to the exhibitors. Now, there is a lot of available published material on first day covers, and this is just a brief list of some of those areas. The American First Day Cover Society has a lot of publications. The American Association of Philatelic Exhibitors has a lot of available information. And there are different studies of American cachet makers. There's an excellent book, although it's about 500 pages, takes a lot of reading, a book by Andrew McFarlane on first day cover philatelic exhibiting. Now, I would make one caveat on that book. The book is very much Andrew McFarlane's perspective. Not all his ideas, not all his suggestions are, shall we say, universally agreed to. They are one person's perspective. But I do say there is a tremendous amount of useful information in that book. The book is available from Amazon, and so it's basically one of those print-on-demand books, so it's readily available. I would encourage all of you as judges and all of you as potential judges to start to look into the available published information about first day covers. Think about your ideas, and I would certainly welcome different input, different ideas from as many people as possible, so that I can share those ideas with the committee which FIP has put together to try and draft a consistent set of rules and guidelines for first day cover exhibiting at the international level. Pradesab, I don't know how things work about questions or discussion. I don't know how we're doing for time. I also have that other brief presentation that you wanted me to make. So tell me what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, Colin, hi, this is PK. I have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
One is around, postal notices. So these were typically issued 10, 15 days before a stamp was released about the listing the names of the philatelic bureau where you could buy the first day cover, get the special cancellation. They also made publicity bromides which they circulated to the newspapers. So those bromides are available, and the clippings from newspapers announcing new stamp issues. So would any of this find a place in a first day cover exhibit?
Absolutely, absolutely. That would all come under the paraphilatelic material, which I illustrated some from the US. All of that material would be appropriate. Obviously, there is a question of balance. The focus should still be on the first day covers, but the paraphilatelic material can and should be included as it relates to the first day covers. So all of those areas that you talked about, all of that type of material can and should be included.
One more follow-up question, please. There are
Yes.
also some of these publicity posters which were printed at the India Security Press, issued in advance of new stamp issues. And then what people did was they actually affixed the actual postage stamp on the date of release, got it cancelled on the date of release. Would those find a place in a first day cover exhibit?
Potentially, yes. The thing I would say is that obviously a large poster takes up a significant amount of physical space in the exhibit. Excellent for a presentation to a society or a lecture for a stamp club, but I don't know that it would necessarily be the best use of space within an exhibit.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Anjali Datta. We often come across information brochures for a particular stamp with stamp affixed and cancelled on the first day of issue. Would that also be included in a first day cover exhibition?
Absolutely. That would straddle the paraphilatelic material and a first day cover. You have the stamp affixed and you have the first day postmark. Obviously, as such, there isn't a cachet, but you have the direct connection between the brochure, the stamp, and the postmark. So absolutely, that would also be eligible to be included in an exhibit.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rajesh Pahadia. I just wanted to know that when we've seen the all kind of material which can be included in the first day cover collection, which includes both the private covers and the government issued covers.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
if I go by the preference, a private cachet cover with the totally privately printed cover with a good cachet, but not with the correct postal rate, vis-a-vis a government issued regular cover with a correct postal rate, properly registered or posted and delivered, which should be my preference if I don't want to duplicate and don't want to use both of them.
That's a really difficult question to answer. I mean, obviously, within an exhibit, you should include both privately produced and official issue cachet covers. One of the aspects which is really, in most cases, a first day cover, if it has a set of stamps, it will not necessarily correspond with a specific postal rate. Obviously, an individual stamp will correspond with an official postal rate. This is one of those gray areas. I mean, if you are studying a set of stamps, there is an argument that showing, say you have three values, and the three values correspond with a domestic rate, an international ship rate, and an ML rate. If you show a first day cover corresponding with each of those rates, a domestic use, a CML use, and an ML use, that would deserve more credit
Okay, so that means the
than
correct.
showing just one cover with all three. So, I mean, this is where flexibility and a little bit of imagination feed in. There's nothing black and white.
Yes, there is no yes or no, but yes, that gives a slight clarity that we must prefer to include the covers with the correct postal rate. Of course, that's in preference,
Right.
but that
I
would be
mean,
my.
again, it goes back to the available material. I mean, to find and this is where you also have first day covers, which may be a commercial first day cover. That is to say, it wasn't intended as a first day cover, but it actually is a first day cover. You would call that a commercial use, but it's a commercial use on the first day. Now, that would come under the grouping of first day covers as postal history. So you could structure, you have your first day covers cachets.
So by census, if the private cachet cover is recorded very low in number, so that should be my preference.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.